introduce the session? Yes, absolutely. Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming today. We're delighted you were able to find us, as not only was there a last minute change of location, but also it's quite a difficult room to get all the way up here. So it's so lovely to see so many of you here, particularly on a tube strike day. It only speaks to Helen's wonderful subject matter that she'll be discussing today. I'm Lucy. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of V&A Academy, who runs this talk programme alongside other lectures, courses, practical workshops, all sorts really. So it's lovely to have you here today as part of the Lunchtime lecture programme, which runs every Thursday. A bit of housekeeping before we get started. There are no planned drills during the talk. So if we do hear, if we are told to evacuate the space, we'll make our way down to the ground floor of the Learning Centre, where front of house will help us exit the building safely. I'll be with you the whole time though, so don't worry about that. If you could switch off your phones for the duration of the talk, that would be great. And lastly, we might have some time for questions at the end. So if you do have one, just pop your hand up, and myself and my colleague have a mic that we can bring round to you. I'm aware that we're in a slightly smaller space today, but it's still useful. So thank you very much. Today I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Helen Astrid, who graduated from the Royal Academy of Music. She performed as a soprano soloist at most of the major venues in the UK, including the English National Opera, Limbury Theatre, Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, Garsington Opera and Chelsea Opera at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, South Bank. Her expertise has attracted widespread media coverage such as BBC World News, The Paul O'Grady Show, Broadcasting House, and BBC's Ask the Experts. Helen's TED Talk, Tell Me the Truth About Opera, has been viewed by thousands. Previous speaking engagements have been for the Courtauld Institute of Art, Wild Arts Opera, Cambridge University, Plymouth University, Marlborough College, Imperial College, Benslow Music, Landmark Arts Centre and Bishopsgate Institute. And today she's to talk to us about art and opera. So over to Helen. I hope you enjoy the talk.
Thank you very much, Lucy. And I hope that you like opera and you like art. I see a few nods, so you're in the right place, hopefully. 9 years ago, the V&A curated opera, passion, power, and politics. We all saw that. It was absolutely amazing. And they focused on 7 world premieres. And it was, of course, it was very incredible. It was really powerful. And I hope today that my talk will illustrate something equally as interesting and enjoyable for you. Now, my research has been based on productions that I've seen or that I've been in. And if I was going to do this talk in a year's time, I might have a completely different set of operas. I've got around about 10 or 11 that I'm going to romp through. So we are going to go at quite a breakneck pace because there's so much I want to pack in. And just to say that being St. George's Day today, I would like to give a special emphasis to English artists or directors or designers, also opera critics. And having interviewed and spoken to some of these magnificent people in the world of opera, that's what I base my research on. So I hope that it will all be really insightful for you. Right. Queen Victoria loved the opera, particularly Puccini and Verdi, the Italian opera. And Prince Albert was more leaning towards the Germanic, quite rightly so, I suppose, genre. And he favoured particularly the works of Weber, which we don't see very much of in this country. So let us begin. My talk is divided into 3 sections. The first, I'm going to be looking at art which has inspired directors and designers to incorporate in their productions. The second part of my talk is going to be artworks which have been reimagined, reconstructed on the opera stage. And the third part will be looking at artists' commissions, artists that have worked directly in the theatre, in the opera house. I wonder if you have any idea who this lady is. A femme fatale, she was full of incest and murderous intent. It is none other than Lucrezia Borgia. This is Portrait of a Woman by Bartolomeo Veneto. And when this came out in the 15th century, it was incredibly shocking and provocative. This lady had an affair with her brother. She had an affair with her father. She caused a scandal. She was married 3 times, and each marriage was a plot by her father for political and power gain. She holds in her hand a posy of wild flowers, and these daisies are a symbol of innocence. She inspired literary works, music, film, and Victor Hugo's play Lucrèce Borgia, which focused on incest and murder. The opera, you well know, Donizetti's Lucrezia Borgia. When the opera reached Paris, Victor Hugo got an injunction to stop it being performed. Why? Well, because it was too gory. In Florence, they were so embarrassed, they actually changed the name of the title and characters, and they became Turks set in the Ottoman world. The V&A has their own Borgia family. This is Gabriele Rossetti, you might recognize, 1863. Their name has really become synonymous with the word murder and treachery. And Rossetti contrasts this innocence of the happy children in the foreground and the scheming adults in the background. This is just before Lucrezia murders her son. The opera is a bel canto opera, and the bel canto actually has 3 meanings. The first literal meaning is beautiful song. I am sure you know that. It is also a technique of singing which is handed down from the castrati. But today we're going to be focusing on it is a genre, a style of opera, and these 6 boxes that you see here, these sort of typify the main components that define what is a bel canto aria opera. Well, you have got stunning, mouth-watering arias, usually very fiendish, with a very, very high, lovely coloratura part. The accompaniment is usually very simple. You might have dee 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 going on, so it's not terribly difficult for the orchestra to play. The stories are relatively easy to follow. We have, I would say, a mixture. The operas in bel canto are either tragic or they're comic. Traditional forms, what I mean by that is you would have your bog standard, you'd have an aria, and you might have a recitative, which is usually a dialogue or internal thoughts, the character relating to the audience. And that might be followed by a cavatina, which is like a slow aria. We're going to hear a bit of one in a moment. And then that's followed by a caballetto, which is usually the fast and the exciting bit, where there's usually a whacking great top note at the end. You're going to hear that as well. And in some of them, like, for example, Lucia di Lammermoor, we've got mad scenes. David Edwards, a director whom I've worked with at the Linbury Theatre, Covent Garden, produced Lucrezia Borgia. This was in Minnesota in 2004. And here we've got, this is Medusa, you can see with sort of mouth wide open. This is Lucrezia, obviously, in the foreground. The lighting designer then, this is right over 20 years ago, had to blow up the image over 200 times, and he used 10 projectors in front of each other. Nowadays, it's just a push a button on your phone, probably. This is Caravaggio. He was a gangster, and he created most of his finest work when he was on the run. he vividly, as you can see, expresses crucial moments in scenes, and often there's some underlying violence in there. And this is really characteristic of his scenes, which are really tightly cropped. With very, very directional lighting and lots of chiaroscuro. Here we've got the supper at Emmaus, which is in the National Gallery on the left, and in the background we have got Madonna. And it's sort of Renaissance meets minimalism, if you like, because the chorus here are sort of blocked together and they're in modern dress. Whereas we've got these sort of antiquated artworks displayed. David Edwards said that the audience was able to make up their own minds and make any connections between what was happening on stage and the artworks projected. It's sort of, he wanted to sort of evoke this sort of timelessness of this 20th century space. And found that a very interesting and exciting juxtaposition. Here we've got 3 images, actually. On the extreme left, that's sick Bacchus. And next to sick Bacchus, we've only got his shoulder, of course. That's Madonna and Child. And through the doorway, you can see, now that is another Madonna and Child with Saint Anne, although we can't see Saint Anne, but the Madonna is just about to stamp on a serpent's face and kill it. And that was a sign of superiority. And we have the Duke Alfonso here, who is the husband of Lucrezia Borgia. And I just want to just briefly tell you the plot of Lucrezia Borgia. The Duke suspects his wife, Lucrezia, is involved with somebody called Gennaro. Gennaro is her son. And he doesn't know that the son belongs to an anti-Borgia faction. He is captured, and after freeing Gennaro, Lucrezia Borgia poisons all the people at this party gathering, and she doesn't realize that her son is one of the poisoned victims, if you like. He dies, he refuses an antidote and dies in her arm. So it's really pretty violent. And in this scene here, we have got, I don't know if you recognize any of these Caravaggios, we've got the sacrifice of Isaac, the bearded man there with this wonderful orange light. And we have John the Baptist, that's that figure there. Which is, the angle is very much altered. And apparently Caravaggio had painted 8 different John the Baptists. Wow. And I mean, I think that it really enhances the mood of the opera. We're going to hear a little bit now from a 2002 production from La Scala. And this is Mariella Devia singing. This is the final scene. She sings, Era adesso il figlio mio. Here lay my son. So excuse me just one moment before we do that. Escape. Bravo, Mariella Devia. You would agree that was the most incredible cabaletta. That note at the end is a top E flat for any musicians here. And she didn't sing that floating in a falsetto voice. She sang that in full throttle. And it's an extremely hard and very rare thing to do. Magnificent. I was sipping water there because I was making me gasp just watching her. So we have another Caravaggio, different opera altogether. I don't know if any of you saw the Rigoletto at Covent Garden. It's on it recently. I'll come on to that. This is another Caravaggio. This is the Martyrdom of Saint Matthew, again in the National Gallery. It depicts the brutal assassination of Saint Matthew the Evangelist, who, while celebrating Mass in Ethiopia, was ordered by a king whom Matthew had rebuked for pursuing a nun. The music of Lucrezia Borgia is a fantastic precursor to Rigoletto because it's very, very similar to in style. Although Rigoletto is Verdi's middle period, I think it was his 16th opera out of 28. It was also his favorite. The opening scene of Rigoletto, which first appeared in the Royal Ballet and Opera, so it's called now, was this tableau mort, which recreates, if I just go back, you can see here, there is the St. Matthew, who is the martyr. And in this case, the martyr is unfortunately the daughter of Rigoletto. Here she is being sacrificed. It's the most tragic story. And the reason it was Verdi's favorite opera, he always wanted to write a story on King Lear, never got round to it. So this is the sort of the closest we come to that, this sort of pivotal father-daughter relationship. And he absolutely loves her and is devoted to her. Based on another Victor Hugo, Le Roi s'amuse, the king's having fun. Oh, and he does indeed. I actually interviewed Oliver Mears, who's director of opera at the Opera House, about his production. And he was telling me that the Duke, at the time, there was a real Duke Gonzaga, Frederic II of Gonzaga, was an art collector. He was also a patron of Rubens. He was notorious for not paying the people that worked for him and under his service too. He was the most dreadful character. And he would have a portrait of all the women he'd slept with in his bedchamber. And that also inspired the Titian nudes, which hangs prophetically on above the entrance to his room in Act 1. And then by Act 2, it's replaced by the rape of Europa. It's sort of really depicting that Gilda is imprisoned in his bedroom, if you like. And of course, the analogy here is that we've got Jupiter, who is posing as the bull and seducing her. This very one. In fact, no, I beg your pardon, it's the next one. This is another Titian, very beautiful. I'm afraid the cupids are a bit cut off at the top, but this is the Viennese Rape of Europa, and this is by Pierre Gaubert, who was a very well-known portraitist in the reign of Louis XIV, and it's believed that that is Louis XIV's granddaughter who's posing here as Europa. Sort of very Rococo in my view, that painting. And the V&A also has in their collection a glazed terracotta relief called The Rape of Europa by Rustici, and the bull is actually turning around and licking the breast of Europa. Now, this I have to say, I just put this in here for only one reason, just because I love it. And I saw this in the V&A East. And this is by James Bailey, who was an English designer, very prominent English designer, costumes as well as stage, worked in the opera from the 1940s to the 1960s. And he did this water on gouache and ink for La Dame aux Camélias, which is by Alexandre Dumas, which was in the inspiration for La Traviata, which you may have seen, another Verdi opera. But I just think the colours are so beautiful, so I had to incorporate that. Another tragedy, God, we've had so much tragedy, but this is, as Mozart called it, dramma giocoso, which is a jocular drama. And this was a production that I was in, and this was in yes, that is me, 1990. I've actually put 1900 in my notes. That would make me quite old, wouldn't it? And our director, David Freeman, in this case, who was director of Opera Factory, would bring in artworks of Velasquez and Goya for us to look at, to sort of get this feeling of this real Spanish pride here. And we did a film for Channel 4, Don Giovanni, which, I mean, I wouldn't say it was censored, but it was highly controversial. It's lots of nudity. It was pretty dire, actually, to be honest. We did it also at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, to sold out performances. I don't know if any of you saw it, but that's just the reference of directors bringing in artworks. Now, a couple of months ago, I was in Paris. I went to Eugene Onegin, Tchaikovsky's amazing opera and ballet and everything. And this was at the Palais Garnier. And director, I don't know if you recognize him sitting there with in his green jumper, was Ralph Fiennes. It was his first stab at opera directing. And he was amazing, apparently. Really centered on characterization, expressions, relationships. And Ralph Fiennes would bring in artworks of Rapin and say to the singers, look at this, study this. And what do you see? And this is now here, this is the curtain call, which I think is very beautiful. Of course, the last act is very lavish. It's set in a palace, and this looks very much like it's just out of St. Catherine's Palace in St. Petersburg. I don't know if you've been there. That's absolutely wonderful too. Very colourful, and the best Lenski I have ever heard, Bogdan Volkov, and he was just tremendous. So from the spectacle of Italian opera, we're going to go towards French opera. Now, this is the classical artist Poussin, and this is called Landscape with Two Nymphs. And he created these wonderful Arcadian landscapes in the 17th and 18th centuries. And this was a catalyst for the next opera, which is, does anyone recognize it? Want to have a guess? French opera? Werther by Jules Massenet. And it's really unusual because the protagonist here is not a diva. It is a pompous tenor. And that's quite unusual. And the designer, Leslie Travers, English designer, he used a composite of Poussin's works and recreated them as this sort of backdrop, almost wonderful wall coverings. And he said he wanted it to have this sort of feeling of decay and rot, and the idea that love is ephemeral, love doesn't last forever. And interesting that the opera is based on works by Goethe and the sorrows of young Goethe, and it's sort of a true to Goethe's own life that boy meets girl, girl's engaged to someone else, boy kills himself. Really depressing. So it's tragic in its own way. It's quite a long opera. It's not done that often. I mean, if you want a real definition of opera, what is an opera, then I think George Bernard Shaw got it right, because he said, opera is when a tenor wants to make love to a soprano and is prevented from doing so by a baritone. So we're coming on to part 2 of my talk now, and this is reimaginings. And here we have got the inside of the theatre at Besançon reflected in the pupil of an eye. And this was designed by an architect, Claude Nicolas Ledoux. And it is a coup d'œil du théâtre. In other words, a visual perspective of an entire stage. And this is a Palladian bank of seats. It caused a scandal. Why? Because it gave equal seating to all the classes. And that wasn't really what people were used to. But it does speak of enlightenment. And that was a huge, huge endeavor and pursuit at the time. And that was about good overcoming evil, and reflected the works of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who was a philosopher and also a composer, who I only recently found out. So this is about the age of enlightenment throughout Europe. And one quote of his I love is that the world of reality is limited and the world of imagination is boundless. This inspired some research for my next opera, which is The Magic Flute, I will tell you, Die Zauberflöte. And here we have got Le Faux Miroir by René Magritte. This places you on the spot. It's like you're being caught out, you're being watched, and at the same time, you're watching. And this image of the eye here, you can see at the top of the screen there, the eye and the clouds coming down. And this was for the Hong Kong Academy in 2019 in this production. And the number 3 features very, very significantly in The Magic Flute. And I've just done my own little research on this, and everything seems to add up to 3. It's really peculiar. You've got the 3 boys here, and there's Tamino on the left. You have the 3 ladies. You have the 3 knocks on the door, which you hear reflected on the orchestra. And these 3 knocks were part of Mozart. Was a Mason, which you probably know, and also his librettist, Schikaneder. They were also part of the same secret Masonic lodge. And in order to gain access to get in, they had to knock in a certain way. And you hear that reflected in the orchestra. Also, the key of the music is in E flat major, which has got 3 flats in it. And some people believe that Mozart was actually killed for revealing too much information about the Masonic lodge. And David said that, quote, his aim was to convey a journey of humanity, exploring the difficulties and humor of the trials we all undergo in our lives in search of fulfillment. Now onto something a little more delightful. What does your eye immediately see? Shepherd? Did somebody say a shepherd? A ship? Yes. What else do you see? A mountain, and what else? The red shirt. It's not Constable. This is purported to be Bruegel, but it was probably Bruegel's school. It's a charming landscape, isn't it? But actually, it's somebody's dying in this picture, and that's Icarus down on the right. Can you see his hand poking out of the sea? And it's deliberate, because the whole this is landscape of the fall of Icarus. And the story is that Icarus was warned by his father not to fly too close to the sun, because his wings were made of wax and feathers. And of course, he didn't listen. And then he falls in the sea and is drowning. He's drowning. And yet people are going on with their lives and not paying any attention. So it's about the futility of the human condition. How can we do that? I think he was trying to make a point. And the director that picked up on this painting to inspire his opera was Jonathan Miller. Whoops, beg your pardon. Let's go back. Whoops, going the wrong way. So it was Jonathan Miller. So I don't have any images from the Don Pasquale, another bel canto opera, but a comic one. But it was quite significant. And I know a lot of singers that worked with Jonathan Miller. He was formerly a doctor, you may know. He had this forensic ability to analyze and cultivate an awareness in his singers and his cast. And he would say, I steal from anyone that I can. He would bring in copies of Fra Angelico's Annunciation and get the singers to study the hands. And, he was really, really very precise. I'm sure it was a privilege to work with him. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. This is the right way. Okay, so here onto another opera. This is, I don't know if you recognize the artist here. Spanish. So this is Goya, El Pelele, the straw man, and this was the opera Goyescus, which actually means in the style of Goya. And believe it or not, composer Granados was fanatical about Goya. So we have got art inspiring composers as well. It was originally a piano work. And the music in the opera evokes the same world that Goya painted, which was eloquent, and flirtatious. And here we have another image on the left, which is Les Jeunes. And some people believe that that is the Duchess of Alba, who's holding a letter, but we're not sure. And sort of the whole, it was trying to illustrate idleness amongst those, the workers, the washerwomen. And I think the production captured that very, very well. We have to use an image of Wagner. He's my hero. And when I saw this at the V&A East, which you have to go to if you haven't been there yet, it's almost life-size. And I was really overwhelmed when I saw it. I just thought, wow, this is so magnificent. How could I possibly have turned down a contract to sing at Bayreuth? But I did, actually, for other reasons, which I won't go into. But what was important to Wagner was, the total work of art, that it was all-encompassing, that he wanted the audience to go through a catharsis, which you would do if you saw real Greek theatre. He inspired the there we go. That's what I was looking for. Total work of art, Greek tragedies, and to make the unconscious conscious. Do we have any Wagner fans in here, or am I on my own? This is the Opera House in Bayreuth, designed by Gottfried Semper, built in 1876. It's like no other opera house. The orchestra is under the stage. You don't see the players as you might do if you go to English National Opera or the Royal Ballet and Opera. It's vast as well. There are no exit signs. You would be sitting on a wooden bench, and that's quite a long time for a 5.5-hour opera. It's 28, the stage is 28 meters wide and 23 deep, which is half the length of Nelson's column. So it is enormous. And Wagner wanted to create this, what he called eine mystische Kluft, a mystical gulf between audience and what was happening on the stage. I think it was almost like, you were captured, you were there, you were in the action. And if any of you saw the recent productions of at the Royal Opera of Siegfried, I know it was completely mesmerizing. I thought it was totally and utterly fantastic. Here we have this is definitely a Bruegel. This is a peasant wedding, and this goes back to 1567. There is something really peculiar about this painting. I wonder if anyone can spot it. Exactly, yes, well done. Was that something you've just seen, or that you know to be a fact? You knew it anyway. Yeah, you can see that the man carrying the wedding feast has actually got 3 feet. We don't know if that was deliberate or if that was accidental. But there we go. 1, 2, 3. And Bruegel has inspired many directors when producing a Wagner opera, particularly Die Meistersinger von Nuremberg. And we're going to hear a little clip of that now. And in the clip, there is a painting on stage, and I'd be just pay attention to that and see if you can guess A, who the painting is of, and B, who you think it might be by. So let's, I hope this will work. I'm just fast forwarding 3.5 hours. Hopefully it will work. One moment. Oopsie daisy. Oopsie daisy. Lucy, I might need you. I'll just get it. I know, sorry. I'm just going to the place, and then to play it, when I press that, it goes.
Oh yeah, don't, if you just play it using that the grey bar there.
Oopsie daisy.
Yeah, this one here, if you use that play instead.
I see.
Makes it quite difficult. So,
okay, that one.
Yeah, that should. I'll go turn it up.
Ich bin kein Hochzeitler. Er tanzt! Was wäre, wie mag ich das sagen? Hör nicht! Das ist mir auch behagen!
Okay, I think I will have to stop that there, unfortunately. That was also a Barry Kosky production from Bayreuth, I think I mentioned. And this scene that you have just seen was actually an almost identical replica of Courtroom 600, which was where the Nazis regime had to answer for their crimes. Does anyone recognize who the portrait was of? That was Wagner's wife. That was Cosima Wagner. And the artist was, obviously it's a copy, Franz von Lehnbach. This here, we're going back to Die Zauberflöte, the magic flute. Beautiful, beautiful design, believe it or not, by another architect who was a city planner. He was a painter and he designed furniture and stage sets. And this is 1816. And this is the wonderful Hall of Stars for the Queen of the Night. And it's got these sort of ice-like structures, sort of creating this cosmic universe, which symbolizes her power. And it's a really, really very, very beautiful backdrop. And here we have none other than Chagall, you may recognize instantly, who created lots of fantastical and innovative designs. This was for the Met in New York in 67. And he designed all the costumes, all 121 costumes and 14 different stage sets. It took him quite a while to do. But his work was always imbued with a sort of Jewish theatre in Moscow, a sort of synthesis of theatre and literature as well. It was a very innovative concept in 20th century art. And he was also had his own Gesamtkunstwerk, this total immersive artwork, as you can see here, is evident in this painting. He designed also the ceiling for the Palais Garnier. I don't know if you've ever sat underneath it. It's quite a thrill. And on the right, that's what is actually underneath the current panel. So it's on it can move, it can go round. But there was uproar when Chagall's design on the left appeared. People say, "Oh, this doesn't blend with the gold and the red and the opulence of our opera house." Too bad. I think it's great. Chagall said, quote, "For me, there's nothing on earth that approaches these two perfections, the magic flute and the Bible. So spiritual, so religious." And he also designed art in buildings. Here we've got the two panels in New York at the Met, you may have seen. On the left, we have got the triumph of music, and on the right, the yellow sources of music. And here they are a little bit close up. It's really hard to find images of these two. I don't know quite why, but I went to great lengths to get them. And he incorporates lots of opera references. And Rudolf Bing, who was director of opera in the 1960s, is also featured on there. There's also a flying Mozart somewhere. Lots and lots of opera and ballet references. It was really, really terrific. Now, so we are on to something a little more different. Le Train Bleu, which is also a fab restaurant in the Gare de Lyon, I don't know if you've been there, which was an inspiration for Agatha Christie's The Mystery of the Blue Train, a Poirot, needless to say. And now, I didn't know about this work until I came to the V&A Chanel exhibition, because she designed the costumes for it. And Mio referred to it as an operetta that is danced, which is really peculiar. But I had to look it up and think, is there any singing in this? There isn't. But I thought you might like the designs there. As a composer, Mio was very sort of anti-establishment. He also hated Wagner, a bit like us here today, or some of you. He was very anti-impressionistic and surreal. So this is the first poster designed by Pierre Fix Massot. And on the right, we've got the designs by Henri Laurence. And his trademark was to have these, can you see that fish-like in the wings, this sort of both sides, and just here on the right-hand side as well, these sort of structures. It was very cubist. The idea was that it evoked a beach. The plot of The Blue Train is there isn't one, because it takes people from the center of Paris to the luxury south of France to go and play on the beach, to play tennis, to go to do a bit of boxing, weightlifting, and swimming, and that is it. But a lot of fun, and it was luxury. And I think the train, well, certainly the restaurant still exists, because I had dinner there not that long ago. It was quite funny. And well, this was the front, this was the curtain. Yes, this was exactly the front cover curtain. And this is in the V&A East. You absolutely have to go and see it. It is magnificent. It's enormous as well. I believe originally it needed scaffolding and 10 museum staff to unroll it. The premiere of this was at the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, which is in itself quite a magnificent work. Apparently, it had German precision for everything working perfectly, French elegance, and English timelessness. Picasso was so impressed with this, because I should say that the original painting of this is quite small, and I have seen this in the Picasso Museum in Paris, which is also gorgeous. But this is a copy, and this was painted by Prince Alexandre Chevalstier. But Picasso was so impressed with it that he signed it and gave it as a present to Diaghilev. And here, this is a photo that I took of the Chanel. I love these beach outfits, aren't they cute? Really great. But apparently, a lot of the dancers complained about Chanel's work because the wool was very itchy on their skin and wasn't conducive to being thrown up in the air in court. And also they had to wear long pearls as well, which would get tangled up and in the way. Well, I am close to closing my presentation, but I have to mention, of course, this man, Stravinsky, who wrote his only English opera, The Rake's Progress, in 1951. And it's based on Hogarth's 8 satirical paintings as his inspiration. And it is neoclassical. The Hogarths, I have actually got copies of the prints over there in order, I think, starting from left to right, if you want to have a look at the sequence of what happens to the decline and fall of Tom Rakewell, who was a spendthrift son and heir of a very rich merchant who came to London. He wasted his money on luxurious things, prostitution, gambling, you name it, ended up in prison. So the moral of the story is, for idle hearts and hands and minds, the devil finds work to do. Stravinsky saw the paintings in Chicago in 1947, and that inspired him to compose the work. So again, another composer who was influenced by art. It is neoclassical. There's the use of harpsichord in it, yet it's 20th century music. It's a bit of an incongruity, but it works. It's fascinating. You could, parts of it almost sound like it's come out of Le Nozze di Figaro or something. There's about 27 players as well. It's not vast. And the premiere was at the Venice Biennale. Well, we have got a clip of it. And here, none other than the designs of the wonderful David Hockney. And David Hockney's, it's said that this work is semi-biographical. And he said, it's not really me, it's just that I use myself as a model just because I'm always around. And apparently at the rehearsals of Rake's Progress, which was done at Glyndebourne, I don't know if you've seen it, it's absolutely incredible. Hockney was making sketches and dropping some on the floor that he discarded, and everyone was rushing to pick them up, and I'll claim that. You're in for a treat today, because I have actually got I don't know if we can have a light up on that, Lucy, a jacket designed by David Hockney, which you're welcome to come up at the end and have a look at. It's quite spectacular. Again, it's sort of made of wool and quite thick. Thick and heavy to wear. We're going to hear a little clip from Act 2, Scene 1, which is the auction scene. And no, yes, sorry, Scene 3. Act 2, Scene 3 is what we're going to hear. This is Barbar the Turk, a bearded woman from the circus who's married to Tom Rakewell. He's trying to get it because he's trying to get away from Anne Truelove. He's bored and ignoring her. Are we okay for time, Lucy? Yes, okay.
I was playing for others for mustaches, but it was covered. They gave me the musical glasses. It was in Vienna. Oh, it must have been Milan because of the donkeys. Vienna was a Chinese man. Oh, what's in the bottle of water from the river Jordan? I'm certain at least it was Vienna and not Jordan. I get so confused about all my travels. There's no boxes came from Paris and the Los Pramas. You not eating my love. On to thou babies and of the feet of all those silly. I do so with basket fossils, which I like best of all my treasures, except my fossils, which reminds me I must have breached never to touch them. I'm as full of them myself. She can do the wax on the so of course I like my birds, especially my great hook, but the most will get in them. Oh, what's the matter? Why don't you talk? What's the matter? Nothing. Speak to me. Why? Come, sweet, come. Why so glum? Smile at the brother who loving smiles at you. Do not frown, husband dear. Stay down!
Crazy work. But really fabulous. You can see that actually on the Glyndebourne website. You just have to subscribe to it. It is available. Incidentally, the Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg is available on YouTube, the entire production. As is Lucrezia Borgia, the other clip that I showed you. So that does bring my talk to a conclusion. But just in brief, before you rush, I am happy to answer a very quick question or two, if that's allowed. Just to say, at Glyndebourne coming up, if you can, South African artist William Kentridge, who is directing, can you believe it or not, L'Orfeo at Glyndebourne this season. It opens in June. That should be amazing. I'm going to go. And I just wanted to say that, obviously art and opera, the combination of these nuanced creatives together will, I hope, deepen our understanding and our relationship with ourselves and enrich our appreciation of opera. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. That was absolutely brilliant. I can't believe the beautiful wealth of operas and their artworks that you brought to us today. We are out of time, but if we just have one really quick question, and I appreciate you also sharing the QR code and the email as well, so you can always get in touch if you have any questions after the session. But yeah, if someone's got something quick that they'd like to pose now, please do pop your hand up and I'll get this mic over to you. I can see one right at the end, so I'm just going to get the mic to
Yes, sure.
Jane.
Sorry, I just feel you ought to be warned. Don't rush over to Storehouse to see Trambler. It's been taken down, but it's been replaced by Firebird, so it's well worth going. But I just thought if somebody thinks one must go and see it, I'm sorry, you've missed it this time.
It's exactly the kind of quick thing that's very helpful. So thank you for that. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you so much for coming and finding your way up here. I hope you enjoyed the lecture as much as I did. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't quite start it where I wanted to, but that's moderate this. Would you mind? Oh, you, oh,
No,
yeah, yes, of course.
You see Jane.
Hello, hello. About that. No, thank you, because I didn't know that,
No, because
actually.
it's only just changed this month. It hasn't really been sort of publicised, so it's, but it still doesn't invalidate what you said or anything.
No,
So
no.
it's just to say that. It's fantastic.
It's really nice to see you. See you sitting there. Okay.
Anyway, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. So, yeah, that's oh, it's in that chapter. Science, be amazing. Yeah, well, I'm just so good to easy. It's a really good time to go over there now and choose something. Is it? When should we? I do. That's definitely. Yeah. I take it today. I do recognize one thing. Thank you. Thank you. There we are. Yeah, if you stand maybe over here, so you'll be lit back and then when it needs a power shadow. Fantastic. So nice to meet you. Yes, yes. Okay. My friends. Thank you so much. Thank you. Just quickly, shop in front of my bag.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're sure. No, no, we just want to rush it. So, yeah. Your phone. Find us.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I've got the whole one to just about, so I might go see some more of the classes.
You have a series.
The next one is next Thursday is the time of the. What's best time? That's the best time. Just use everything. Numbers must be. They run weekly. Thursday, June, time. Normally, they actually attend. Yeah. So please do come again. We post on the website. A few things are useful. And that's basically the house. So I do keep that because they must have done too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming today.
No, I appreciate
Yeah, thank you. See what you're doing, is this right? Yeah.
So it took just over an hour. It wasn't too bad. I was wondering how you must have, how did you do it?
I got rid of it earlier, so I had a few things to do. But there wasn't any problem.
This is great. So this was from the Regs program.
Yes.
Yeah. Which
Oh, yeah.
definitely made me want to go and see that session. Change from space to go. I don't know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, you can have a look around a little bit.
Yeah.
And I will see you.
Yeah, that's all. That's pretty quickly.
Yeah, actually, but that guy, who I don't know, yeah, I don't know him. He responded just instantly. But he seems slightly,
Yeah.
I don't know, he's just coming over like it's different or something.
Yes, no, you're good enough to play with me.
I know, that's how, that was the vibe, wasn't it? And the guy was mistaking that. So, yeah. And,
You know, you want to play with beginners, and you don't want to, there's no point in playing with.
so in a way, it's a perfectly valid question. I don't know, I mean, you maybe misinterpreted it by. And I don't know the other person, I know.
No, I don't think
No, it seemed to work quite well, you know, that sort of. Thing was there.
But she's
It's not
evil.
Yeah.
Be doing this week.
No, actually, no, that suits me.
Does.
So, anyway, I'll let you get on.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Okay. Right, see you, take care. Bye.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Which is a nice.
It must be nice for you to get to put on the coat as
Well,
well.
well, I was informed of wearing it, no, I don't, because this doesn't fit, I can't get it all, because it's not mine. And it's a bit heavy, you know, heavy fabric,
Oh, I see.
so, I didn't, I wanted to wear it, I should have modeled it, never mind.
Do you want to take any more to make your underwear?
But I'll just.
Yeah. For sure, we can pack that up. No, but that was. Yeah, but you have so much to say, it's so knowledgeable. I know, well, I think
I think the danger of trying to pack too much in and then it just becomes heads, but I'd be grateful for your feedback actually. For that, whether it was too much. Or I don't think it was short of material.
yeah, oh, you're certainly not, and I got, Well, the clips are so great. And when you think about opera to be able to have some opera in the text, so it's really straightforward. Yeah. And I did not do it. And the other thing, and then, I mean, it's what I said, you know, to present my university to she was an exciting thing to develop, and as much as actually having a director. So we can relate that session part of it present, and then have this live performance. Oh, wow. Yeah, in front of one of the worst.
No, do you know, that's really interesting. We're thinking a lot at the moment, we run art history courses in sort of 10-week blocks.
Yes.
Like 10-week
Yes.
on various themes. And we're thinking a lot at the moment about how we can add what we're referring to as the original activities. So things around the lectures that bring to life some of the content, some of the history, some of the culture, etc. So things like Q&A or you know, those kinds of things. Interactive, and when perhaps it's something that they wouldn't have gotten, you know, they haven't done that as they wouldn't have necessarily had the chance to see that same sort of, you know, we're really interested in ways to do that. So that's a lovely thought actually.
There's a lot that's going to be. I mean, ideally, it would be to have a really long. I love that. Good. Yeah.
You're starting for the just for the minute.
Oh, yeah.
You said
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
It must still in the copyright.
Right.
Because it's not.
That's the problem.
So there's a lot of the other. They want to. But it was very good, and also just think that basically I was watching I was interesting.
They seem to be very, very.
Yeah.
Is that great? Good. Well,
I know if you present, it's hard to know if I'm presenting, it should be for us community. So it's still very interesting.
it's just me, you know, just giving from my perspective. I enjoyed it, so happy to. We're going to the lessons. Oh, so lovely. Thank you.
So as we mentioned, so much of the guys to try to keep that spirit. Okay.
I go through classes. So I can go through.
Oh, lovely. But not, especially when they're like this. Yeah.
Because I think it's the biggest. Not that
Oh,
I
I see, yeah.
And.
Thank you.
Yes, I just offering creating people here.
I thought I'll leave it last one.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's 75.
Well, yeah.
So how many chairs are there?
Yeah, that's a good way to work it out, isn't it?
It's about 5, 6 on the row.
A row up to, so it's yeah, they're not the same, they're 6 on this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows of 6, which is going to be big and tall. And then 1, 2, 7 on that, which is going to make it 61. Going to take away the 2 that were vacant, so that's going to take out 59. There you go.
She asked me, I made
So it's like, I think there was something today, I'd be delighted with that actually data there, and up here.
No,
So I think it's really encouraging. Interesting bit of feedback from somebody said, actually, not about a specific lecture, but they said it was like a national lecture, so they kind of see the full program course.
Yeah.
Which I said, you know, it wasn't simply that. I mean, so it's like, thank you for mentioning it, because actually we need people to say it to us because we're going to be saying it.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. So I appreciate this, you know, frustrating for you. It's keep in mind that also apparently we haven't done anything to be
I probably get this like
I think it's ask me. I think maybe that's it. Maybe. Yeah, because it was just post-pandemic.
Yes, no, she wouldn't be a single one of those good words. But she always does it, she comes like
So,
4 times a term.
so she was saying, the latest we speak,
No, I
actually,
do get it.
she said, it used to be on West Page.
No, so I actually have it on my page. No, I can take it, I don't have a page. I said it was
Really?
the term before, and then we had a cancellation, and also people put it in their diaries. And they showed up.
Oh, do you need the programme handout?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Oh, she's saying, well, the handout is the webpage. Yeah. Yeah. But no, you're right, because we used to have the sort of PDF or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is always tricky, because like I say, people then just put it in their diary, don't check back, and even through installation. They just got it, turn up, you know.
Yeah.
Or a change in program, they just have to swap people around or whatever, they've got the version.
That's actually what happened.
A month ago, and actually it's changed, and they went, oh, I didn't want to come to this one, I want to come to the other one.
So there's a few people that have asked me about emails and they have really strong like. Semantic before you come in, they will promise you.
I mean, today's a perfect example, I could have very easily been the case of having in,
Yeah.
you know, with travel.
Yeah, absolutely. When I spoke to them last week, he said that.
Yeah,
I knew that she could have, but yeah, she was.
it very easily could have been, and then if it had been.
You
But
could,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's stuff around, you know, cancel your lunch with your friend, because yeah, I'm going to lunchtime lecture, I can't make it that day, you know, just. It is a bit of a risky one.
And she, yeah, she was. No, I was, but I had a call with that ages ago, and I set it up, and she was asking lots of questions, and clearly in an interesting way, you know. It's a bit worried that she was a bit annoyed about being in this room, she really wasn't at all, and at the end, she said, I actually really like being in this space. She's like, go hear that, that's very.
She teaches,
Yeah.
so I guess she's used to delivering.
Yeah, and I think this room actually, though it's obviously less formal than the lecture theatre, etc., you know, it's nowhere near as elegant. It's very intimate, it feels nice.
I think that's pretty much.
And I think people quite often like that. It's in what you said about, you know, people not looking at their phones, concentrating. I think this room lends itself to that partial lecture theatre person. I think you feel very anonymous in the lecture
Obviously,
theatre.
the strengths that. Yes, edition.
Something like that, it's even boiling hot and freezing cold. Yeah.
So actually, it's there.
It's the event right here, so you stand here, doing comfortable ways.
But I'd rather that exactly later on in the term, it's been in the term.
Yeah, true.
Someone mentioned that they're a bit cold this week.
But yeah, because the lights are a bit brighter in here, and because, you know, when you're in the lecture theatre looking out at people, once the lights go down, you can't really see people at all properly. Whereas in here, you feel much closer, and I think that lends itself to being more focused. It's in a way, because you're more quiet, you know, as an audience members, you think, oh, maybe I'll really check my phone. Yeah.
No, it was good in the end.
Pretty good.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not nice to be fast, though, is it? Feeling this thing.
No. That is so.
Words of people who struggle with the room.
That is so weird as well, that really even if, well, the AV thing was just that, not really, that's a bit of yeah, that's like fine. But with, it's weird that the conference is expecting us to come in, but what I do.
But so the